emailed to the CoStar on January 10th of 19. A copy's been placed on the bulletin board in the Borough office, and a copy's been filed with the Borough Clerk. Mr. Weber?
Here.
Mr. Goldfarb?
Here.
Mr. Gonell?
Here.
Dr. Cutler?
Here.
Mayor Engelstad?
Here. So tonight's a little different. We have put out that this is a listening session, and that is what at least I intend to do. That doesn't preclude any of my fellow elected officials up here to weigh in on tonight's topic. If you're here to talk about legalization, that's really something that you need to direct your attention to Trent. We don't have it's the governor, it's the assembly, it's the state senate that's going to decide the legalization aspect. We're here tonight to talk about its impact on Bradley Beach. Some of the ground rules I would hope that everyone can adhere to. Try to limit your remarks to 3 minutes, if that's okay. 3 minutes. Actually, there are two folks that reached out to me and said, I can't make it, do you mind reading it? And one gentleman, it's a 2-page letter, and I read it in two and a half minutes. I said, okay, that's good. That's a lot of stuff to read, and we did it under 3 minutes. The weather is going to get nastier tonight, so if we can do this within 2 hours, that's a goal. But if there's still a demand for people to talk, then we'll go as long as we have to. As you can see, we've done the podium a little differently tonight. Usually we have the podium just facing us. So we put it on the side so you're kind of talking to everybody at the same time. My expectation is that we're very civil in this process, that we're respectful of each other's opinions. I use this rarely, but I will if someone is disrespectful to somebody else. And with that, I'm going to get started. Now, I'll ask that if you would like to speak, we can form a line against the wall here and come up. But first, I'm going to read a couple of items first, and one of them is just an update from our borough attorney as to where the legislation stands. This is regarding pending legislation regarding Cannabis Bill S2703. There are 2 bills currently pending in the New Jersey legislature regarding recreational or adult use cannabis. Senate number 2703 and an identical companion bill in the Assembly. With respect to local controls, both bills specifically provide that licenses will not issue unless the applicant is in compliance with relevant local regulations and ordinances applicable to its business operations. Even if a medical marijuana facility is operating in a municipality, personal use, adult use, or recreational use facilities are not permitted unless the facility can demonstrate written approval from the local government entity in which the establishment is located. Each local government entity has the option to authorize and regulate the time, place, manner, and number of establishments within its jurisdiction, or enact an ordinance to prohibit such operations by any one or more classes of establishments. Example given, retail, distribution, cultivation, entirely. Here are some items of interest in the pending bills. After the bill is passed, towns have 180 days following its adoption and promulgation of rules and regulation to pass an ordinance prohibiting or regulating the growing, cultivating, processing, selling, and reselling of cannabis. If a municipality does not pass a regulation or ordinance within the 100-day period, cannabis operations are permitted for 5 years thereafter. License applications are provided to the local government entity for sign-off as to whether the operation and location comply with local ordinances. On-premises consumption is permitted in a licensed cannabis retail facility only if endorsed by the local government entity. A local government is permitted to impose a local tax on a retail cannabis facility, as well as other licensed cannabis facilities up to 2% of sales. Local government entity, whether or not it permits retail or cannabis facilities, is empowered to enact an ordinance making it unlawful for any person 21 years of age or older to consume cannabis in a public place, and provides for a civil penalty for up to $200 per violation. Consumption is prohibited in any area of any building or any facility owned, leased, or controlled by any public or private institution of higher education, regardless of whether the space is indoor or outdoor. Possession of cannabis on elementary or secondary school property is a disorderly person's offense. There are advertising restrictions for cannabis facilities prohibiting any advertisement within 200 feet of an elementary or secondary school. No cannabis facility, whether recreational or medical, can be located within a drug-free school zone, which must be at least 1,000 feet away from any property used for school purposes. Municipalities may have its engineer prepare a drug-free school zone map, which is admissible evidence in the event a violation of the regulation regarding proximity to schools is at issue. Finally, one note, all legislation is still subject to amendment before passage, and we also understand that the executive and legislative branches still have some disagreement. So let me kick this off with a letter that I received. I would like to thank Mayor Engelstad and the Borough Council for holding this listening session in an effort to get a better understanding of where the borough residents stand on allowing either a medical marijuana dispensary or retail outlet operate in the borough. Unfortunately, I'm away on business and unable to attend. As with all matters that I discuss with the mayor and council members, there are two questions I always ask. What problem is your proposed action intended to fix, and what are the facts of the situation? In answering those questions, I urge you not to get overwhelmed by unsubstantiated fears and look to the facts of the matter before making your decision. As Edward Deming famously stated, without data, all you are left with is an opinion. So here are the facts. There are people in Bradley Beach who currently use marijuana for both medicinal and recreational purposes. When New Jersey makes marijuana use legal, this will become a normal legal activity. Banning sales in town will not change this. A 2017 study published by the American Public Health Association documented that following marijuana legalization in Colorado, opioid use in the state decreased by 6.5% and overdoses decreased by nearly 25%. There were 1,409 opioid-related overdose deaths in New Jersey in 2016. Based on these statistics, reductions similar to those seen in Colorado could save 100 to 300 lives annually. A 2018 study by the Oregon Research Institute found that there were no significant changes in the number of youth who used marijuana following legalization of recreational marijuana in the state. The same study documented an increase in the amount of marijuana smoked by youths who already used marijuana, but that this change was attributed to marijuana legalization in the state and not due to the presence of a local dispensary or retail outlet. Another 2017 study conducted by Ohio State University suggested that opening marijuana outlets led to similar rates of property crime as those seen near bars, liquor stores, and restaurants that serve alcohol. Additionally, areas with businesses that sold alcohol had significantly higher rates of violent crime than were seen near marijuana businesses. Bradley Beach currently has numerous bars, restaurants, and liquor stores in operation to sell alcohol. The presence of these establishments has a more significant impact on local crime rates than any marijuana outlet will. This past fall, borough properties were reassessed with an average increase of over 13%. While this reassessment will not in itself directly result in higher taxes for property owners, tax rates in the borough must decrease by a similar amount in order to maintain property taxes at their current levels. Allowing a retail marijuana outlet in the appropriate business zone in town would add a sorely needed rateable to the borough tax base and help shield us from additional property tax increases. Whether deserved or not, Bradley Beach is seen by some as a borough where local government makes a difficult place to open and operate a business. By preemptively banning a new economy business, the mayor and council will be sending a clear signal reinforcing that anti-business sentiment. In summation, the mayor and council now face an opportunity to see past the irrational fears surrounding marijuana and focus on the facts. And the facts are pretty simple. The presence of a marijuana outlet in town has not been shown to have an adverse impact on crime or underage marijuana use rates. Further, the council has an opportunity to take positive action to control the circumstances under which any marijuana outlet is allowed to open, including limiting the number of types and locations of outlets in town, specifying the hours of operation, controlling the products permitted to be sold, specifying which zone businesses will be allowed to operate in, and restrictions on signage and advertisements. By allowing a well-regulated marijuana outlet to operate in town, the council will help alleviate negative perceptions people have of opening a new business here, expand our tax base with new economy business, and maintain Bradley Beach's family-friendly atmosphere, all with minimal adverse impact. I urge the mayor and council not to preemptively ban marijuana dispensaries and retail outlets, but to enact ordinances that provide sensible, positive control on these establishments. I thank the mayor and council, and this is from Tim Sexsmith of 500 Lorraine Avenue in Bradley Beach. Let me read one more, then I'm done, and folks can start speaking. Dear Mayor Engelstad, I'm writing to you today to express my concerns regarding the possible legalization of recreational marijuana use in New Jersey. I would like to thank you and the council for giving the residents of Bradley Beach the opportunity to express our thoughts. I am concerned about the possible approval by the council to allow recreational marijuana dispensaries to conduct business in Bradley Beach if the state legislature and Governor Murphy signs recreational use of recreational marijuana into law. The most urgent concern I have is for the health and safety of our residents and youth. I'm the high school drug and alcohol counselor in Monmouth County, and I have seen firsthand how the legalization of recreational marijuana use in other states throughout our nation has already affected our youth. The most apparent is the perception of our students and many parents that marijuana is not a big deal, which has increased usage among high school students in general, particularly with the use of vapes such as the Juul, and even more concerning the availability of marijuana edibles. The Juul, which is considered to be an electronic nicotine delivery system, can also contain marijuana oil, which typically offers higher levels of THC compared to traditional marijuana product. The marijuana edibles produced to look like gummy bears and Sour Patch candy contain dangerously high levels of THC that in many circumstances result in emergency medical treatment. The sale of recreational marijuana products, if allowed to be sold in Bradley Beach, will increase the possibility of edibles and similar cannabis products falling into the hands of our youth. I could share additional information of situations that I work with on a daily basis, but I will continue only to say that I'm strongly opposed to both the legalization of recreational marijuana use in New Jersey and allowing recreational marijuana dispensaries to operate in the town of Bradley Beach. I have attached additional information to this email that includes data gathered from Smart Approaches to Marijuana that I urge you and the council members to read and review, and they'll be here if anybody wants to see them. And this is from Eva Corella on 611 2nd Avenue. At this time, okay, go ahead.
One quick question.
Sure.
Lenny, a drug-free school zone is 1 square mile, correct?
No.
It's not?
It's 1,000 feet.
1,000 feet.
1,000 feet.
So that's what, 3/4 of the town?
No.
No? Half, maybe?
Well, along those lines, do you want to keep on the question or want to hit it at the public first?
Public question.
Okay, why don't we do that, sure.
Okay. So, come to the microphone, your name and legal address, please.
Somebody has to do it first.
Okay, yes, it'll be.
This is not you listening to us, it's really us listening to you, so.
Where would you like me to sit?
By the microphone over there, please, if you don't mind.
That way get there.
Sure, thank you. Do I have to state my name? Is this like a formal get-together, like a
Yes,
typical?
we're keeping minutes.
All right, my name is Jeffrey Oakes. I'm not even from Bradley Beach. I'm from Oceanport. I'm a medical cannabis patient. I have cancer, stage 4 cancer. I've been all over the state. I've actually, I think someone mentioned before, New Jersey Ramp, I think was one of them. Yeah, I've been to countless meetings like this with Kevin Sabat on the other side of the table. So I'm familiar with it, and I guess I can understand why some of the folks didn't stand up right away, because a lot of people there's a lot of confusion on it, on the legality. There's a lot of social aspects of it. And one of the things as a patient, and I could ask a question. I know I've read a lot, I didn't do a lot of homework on Bradley Beach. Can you give us any light on your position for medical versus rec?
Personally, me first.
Would- Anyone that would comment.
I'm 100% in favor of medicinal use.
Right, but for the sale of it in Bradley Beach?
No.
No. Strictly based on zoning, I guess?
Yes.
That it would be, would that be based on a seed to sale type facility?
It's based on me.
Right, no, that's cool, that's cool.
Yeah.
Because a lot of councils have the idea that the facilities are like they are now for medical, that they're seed to sale facilities. And with the pending legislation, there will be some smaller dispensaries, from what I understand, that will address smaller towns as the patient population increases, which we have seen. I mean, it's up to 40,000 now. That was I've been in the program almost from its inception. When I got in, there was, I think, 14,000, and just this year, I think they've added 20,000, and they've added more dispensaries and more, and they're going to license grow facilities that are so they're going to have satellite facilities. There's a 212-acre grow only facility that I think was licensed or is in the process of being licensed for North Jersey. So that facility is obviously in the works to supply places that, you know, might be the size of a Quick Check or a liquor store. So that the people that live in neighborhoods like Bradley Beach, where the population is dense, or a city like Newark, that the patients that are in the program can have access to their medical cannabis, because it's the cat's out of the bag, like you say. I mean, I don't think, Mayor, I agree with you. Of course, I'm a successful patient that many of us support medical, and you know, most of us that advocate for medical, we could care less about rec, but I think that's more what you're talking to here. But I'd like to leave the committee here, or the council, with a positive thought that medical is going to be it's going to be normalized, and the state is going to see to that. Last week, Governor Murphy added to the qualifying ailments opioid abuse syndrome to, you know, address the opioid epidemic, which I used to ask how many, or if you have overdoses or have had deaths from overdoses, and we all know that that's happened in Bradley Beach, because it virtually happens in every town. And the state has plans for that, and the Board of Health has plans for that. So what I advocate for is the towns to, you know, have your opinion on rec, but support medical with a resolution. That's what I ask for. So I'll let somebody else speak. Thank you.
Mr. Rhodes, can I ask you a question?
Sure.
Is your medical use, is that related to pain? Is that because of pain or?
No, I use it for a treat-all medication. I've had colon cancer for 3 years. I use no other pharmaceutical medications. I advocate on a large level for opioid reduction, and I'm a successful story with that. And I use it also for its anti-proliferative effects for cancer. And right now I'm cancer-free. I've been in remission for more than 6 months, so I'm successful. I've used it in conjunction together with chemo, of course, traditional stuff, but it's successful. So, and I'm also a patient advocate. I also coach other patients on how to make the medication, the awareness and how it works, different mechanisms, how it works on different stuff like MS or glaucoma. I pretty much stick to cancer, but yeah, for pain, nausea, I use nothing else. I haven't touched anything. And it's a sin that what is happening to us with these opioids. And we're all coming to the understanding that they're ridiculously overprescribed. And me being in the hospital as many times as I have been, I can say, I see it, they've given them to me, and I've handed them back to them in a ridiculously huge amount. They gave me, my last procedure where they burnt the tumor out of my liver, they gave me 100 units of morphine. In the morning, I gave them back 95 of those units. So our pharmaceuticals companies are problems, our doctors are problems, the public perception of cannabis as a alternative medication to opioids, a 100 times safer medication that we should all be considering, not just for adults. The program is open for children. There's a lot of pushback from the public about save the kids, and I agree with save the kids. Let's save the kids. Let's save the kids that have brain cancer. Let's make them aware in the schools that there's an alternative medication Well, there is no medication. The child that has cancer, brain tumor, they're gonna die. They're gonna die probably, and no one's telling them about marijuana. No one's telling them the truth. I'm out of breath. Somebody asked me another question, because I love this forum, this is great. Most towns don't have a forum like this, and I respect you guys for it.
Thank you.
Hello, Mayor and Council, how you doing? My name is Hugh Giordano. I live at 57 Argyle Avenue in Gloucester Township. I'm a union representative for the United Food and Commercial Workers Union Local 152. We represent the Bradley Beach public sector workers here, and we also represent healthcare workers, retail, manufacturing, and I'm proud to announce that cannabis is union now too. Whether we like a union or not, we have set standards for this industry already. And that's what it's about. It's about the working class to us. The UFCW represents approximately 1.4 million members around Canada and United States and Puerto Rico. And as I said, represent adult use and medical workers within cannabis. So I consider myself a really good resource as far as the labor and economic side of it. I can tell you this, cannabis creates good jobs. And these are jobs that are real wage jobs, not forced by government. The big conversation has been about forcing a minimum wage, right, on businesses. This is an industry that creates these wages. These folks that invest in cannabis outside the medical side have been largely a Wall Street real estate mogul kind of thing. So it's big business coming in to take advantage of an industry to make more money. And that is why we have been involved in it. Now let me give you some facts about what these jobs are paying to folks and how they can really impact even Bradley Beach in a positive manner. A lot of jobs that are being created are minimum wage jobs, no benefits, no retirement. Those aren't jobs. Those aren't careers. Those are for kids that need a part-time job, pushing a cart, being a bagger. We need jobs that create for the middle class and launch people into the middle class. So, for example, starting wage within the cannabis industry from bud tenders, these are the folks that take care of patients when they walk in. They are usually degree holders in chemistry and other sciences, even horticulture at this point. These folks are young, talented entrepreneurs, and they are trades folks. Just like the iron workers, just like the IBEW, our members go through strict training. We are already working with the state to make sure that these folks that work in these industries are trained as professionals. If you look at it, the wages start around $15 an hour and they go up quickly, which means that someone that comes out of college, especially when we have such a strong science-based economy here in technology, in chemicals, and even beauty supplies here. We all hear about the CBD products. I'm sure if you walk through, you see the lotions and so forth. There's so much more to be learned here. And with such a high, we have our millennials, the young people that are getting trained and have walked out of colleges in $100,000 in debt. These could be good paying jobs where our young people could stay here and stay here and create a local economy. The thing about New Jersey townships is that we had to look at it in a very metropolitan way. What happens here will affect the other towns around here too. Do we want to attract young people who want to have careers, who want to invest in their communities, who are educated? Of course we do, and these jobs create that. These jobs offer health care, pension, benefits outside that cover their family. They even have paternity leave for when people get married, 6 weeks paid maternity leave. We can't find that anywhere in any of these jobs today. So these are job creators. This really boosts the middle class. And if you look at it too, also, when it comes down to it, the good thing about it is this legislation, and I've been working on this on the state level, the legislation allows for, and I'm glad the mayor brought this up from your council, it allows you to have time to really invest in this instead of jumping and saying we don't want it in our town. I can tell you this, there are a lot of employers out there who want to do a small business model. And the good thing about it is you have a lot of control. You don't have to be this big, glamorous Las Vegas type of light thing. You can control the way it's advertised. And also, you can control the type of products are here. If you want to focus on medical, focus on medical. And that's okay. It still creates jobs. And it helps sick people. People like Jeff, who's up here and openly admits that he has stage 4 cancer and just recently was able to have some relief from that. There's real scientific data on this. and the data is important. The other thing to look at too is, this is a way to bring the type of tourism that you want. It was brought up about bars and so forth. Bars cause a lot of trouble. Everybody can see that. Everybody can admit that. But medical cannabis, if you look at it from the medical side is very expensive. It's an all cash transaction, which means that it's not covered by healthcare. So people that buy this medicine have to be somewhat wealthy or give up a lot to get their medicine. And I tell you, and this gets the biggest thing I think from that we're talking about here is protecting the children, right? We're talking about protecting the kids. All these folks that deliver beer, wine, and liquor, they're all union guys. Do we see union guys at your local bars giving out cases of beer to 16-year-olds? Of course not. They're not going to give up benefits, pension. Okay. So in closing, I would say to the town and to this body, wait until the legislation is done. Let us help you. Take a tour of the Garden State Dispensary, see what it's really like, and make a decision. Make a decision. You have plenty of time, and we're here to help you. Thank you.
How you doing? My name is Mike Vingilaos. I live at 367 Church Road in Brick. I don't want to echo too much about what Jeff said, but I'm also a medical marijuana patient in New Jersey. And what it did for me was I was able to get off of opiates with it. I had a long, horrible history that started off with a doctor prescribing me painkillers for some pain issues. And it got to the point where the doctor wound up getting cut off. I wound up having to buy painkillers on the street. I wound up going onto heroin. It got really bad. I was on a 10-year struggle, and when I was off the heroin, I was on a methadone clinic. I tried to get clean many different times, and I never really could do it. I wasn't able to really achieve it. I put a lot of effort into it. This last time around, when I was able to get off of, today I'm completely opiate free, no methadone, no heroin, none of that. Been a year clean now. And for me, the X factor was the medical cannabis. I was able to use it and was able to relieve the withdrawal symptoms. And in the morning, when I would normally take the methadone dose, I would smoke a little bit of the cannabis, and then I would find that I'd go halfway through the day and realize I didn't even take my prescribed dose that I was supposed to take for that morning. So I was able to cut down the usage of the methadone, and it got to the point where I was able to cut it out completely out of my life. So, medical cannabis for me pretty much saved my life, and there's a lot of other people who could benefit from it. When I was on the program, when I was on the methadone clinic, I was paying money to go there, $90 a week, but now they have funding that's set up where you go there for free, which is I'm not trying to debate that nor here or there, but for me to be on the program, to save my life with medical marijuana, like you stated, I don't have the money to be into the program, so I'm going without a lot. I'm going without a lot, and I continue to go without a lot, and I'm continuing to suffer just to stay on a non-lethal, non-addictive substance. So I think what councils, and I thank you guys for having this forum and having a productive dialogue, but one thing I wish we could all do is approach things from a medical aspect by not banning facilities, not making it harder for the next guy, because for me, like I just stated, I can barely afford the program. It's a battle. People like myself who are in the same position, we're just trying to save our lives. We all want the same thing at the end of the day. We all want safety for our children. We all have the same common interest at the end. So I guess that's about it. Thank you for listening to me.
I really appreciate all the visitors that are here, but if we could just, from now and for the next hour or so, I'd like to just focus on the legal residents of Bradley Beach. That's who we're beholden to here. So if anyone does not meet that criteria at the end, you can come up and speak. Bill?
Yes. William Shook, 110 Fifth Avenue, Bradley Beach. Having a wife that needed medicinal marijuana, I've seen what it did for her, how much it's helped her, and then being in Vietnam and seeing the actual abuse of recreational marijuana. So I could go both ways on it. But I have one question. You had, a couple questions. You said that 1,000 feet from a school it can't be sold? And from, let's say, where kids play, a playground?
No cannabis facility, whether recreational or medical, can be located within a drug-free school zone, which must be at least 1,000 feet away from any
Okay.
property used for school purpose.
And what about the, like, let's say, the rec center? That's,
It's just related to the consumption cannot take place in any public or private facilities.
within 1,000 feet?
No, it doesn't talk about
Oh, it
recreation,
just can't be
just the
there?
school itself, yes.
Okay, alright, like I said, I've
Oh,
seen.
sorry, any property used for school purposes, so that would also apply to, because if the fields are being used for, soccer or something like that.
So technically, my understanding would be that it could only be sold from like around Borough Hall going north?
We'd have to plot it out and have it, because it does say, you may have an engineer prepare a drug-free school zone map, you probably already have one, chief. Yeah.
So also what I had read in a few articles,
Go ahead.
when I was doing some research, there were some claims that, especially I believe in the Wall Street Journal, there was a claim that, houses of worship, they do teaching. And they do all the classes, although it may not be full-time, they do it anyway. And that, from what they claim, might be included as, 1,000 feet from a school, but I don't know for sure, I'm just saying what I read in the articles.
Okay. So, what about the?
So I'm not sure if legally those are actually in, within the parameters of the school itself.
What about the beach area?
I read nothing about that. It's just schools, correct?
I mean, schools go
Schools-
there,
Schools,
you know, kids go there.
Well, I guess
With
those
school-
moments.
What we know is what I've read so far.
Yeah, no, I understand, I'm just questioning, I'm just asking.
Yeah.
You know, that's all I'm doing, I'm asking, like I said, I've seen, a cancer patient, you know, how they feel, how they react to marijuana once, you know, as far as the pain and everything, and I've seen the other way. And, I mean, I have no issues with the medicinal marijuana, but I do have issues with other things. And I've been reading where in Colorado, where it's been, it's legal and everything, the accidents are even worse. They've increased. I mean, I don't know what the actual, what was the percent? 63% increase in accidents.
You're talking about
So,
motor vehicle
you know,
crashes?
excuse me?
You're talking about motor vehicle crashes?
Yeah. So, you know, something to think about, and I wanna thank you, I've been asking for, over a year and a half, almost 2 years, to have this conversation, you know, let's talk
Well,
about it,
I
see
think
where
what we
we're
wanna
gonna
do is
go.
put it on a parallel path
Yeah.
with what's going on in Trenton at the same
Yeah,
time.
no, at least we're discussing it, instead of waiting for the last minute.
Okay, Dr. Cotton?
Yes. I'd like to take just a minute of this time to kind of frame where this conversation should be. Everybody knows historically that given anybody who can choose any set of statistics can prove anything. We're not really here to debate whether medical marijuana is beneficial or not beneficial. We're here really to look at, is having a facility in this town feasible? Is the square footage that we have available in this town feasible for placing a facility? Do we have sufficient parking to be able to support a facility? We all know that the parking in this town is dreadful as it is, especially on weekends and for the 100 days of summer. There have been facilities that have opened where they thought they were going to see 100 people a day, that were seeing 1,000 people a day, that had to hire 3 policemen and had to locate 2 other parking lots to be able to support their business. Not that it's not a worthwhile business, not that it's not a money-making business, okay? But within the 3/4 square mile of a town, of what 1,000 feet on either side of a school is, so that's it's a 4,000 square foot portion of that. That means that it really only leaves a small sliver of the town that you can locate a facility after the drug-free zone is. And in that sliver of a town, is there sufficient parking for that? And that's really what we should be debating about. And trying to debate, is it good, is it bad? It's legal, medical marijuana does work and it helps people. But we need to look at the growth of this town and can it physically support? We aren't a town that has huge square footage areas, that has acreages where they can put a facility and be able to support the infrastructure we need to look at it in that reality. Not that whether it would be beneficial for the town, beneficial for the residents, but would it be a detriment by having all the other personnel come in? And we know what a detriment it is when the summer people come in and how everybody complains. But that's the reality of a beach town. So, within those constraints, okay, regardless of the fact that there has been data out there that says there are more accidents in Colorado since marijuana, that, you know, people get off opiates, that's not really what our debate should be. Our debate should be, what is realistic for Bradley Beach? So with that, I apologize for taking the band over, but
It's all good.
I pass it back.
The podium, as you see, is available. We have someone coming up. Julie, she's coming up in the back. Go ahead, keep going. Go ahead. Just, why don't you guys start a line? That's okay. Start a line.
Julie Newtitis, 605 North Avenue. To go down the parking issue and to hear where, you know, a dispensary can go, the issue I have is that everything gets pushed to the north end. And
Or the
I look,
south end in this one.
well,
Yeah, that little sliver of both.
yeah, we're very, very hard pressed for parking, as everybody knows, and I won't even go down that path. But right now, if you put something in that's going to have such a high volume of traffic, concerns me as being a neighbor on the north end. Because right now on my street, we have another house that's going up, because it's a conforming lot to have a carriage house, and we've had more people going. There's not a parking spot to be had now on our street. So, and I'm off of Main Street, so that is a major, major concern for everybody there. And then also, if you just go one block down, then we also have the Fletcher Lake Park. So that's a concern too. So that whole area right there is, we're a very tiny town. I mean, again, not to debate, you know, usage, good, bad, or indifferent. It would be any kind of business is how I look at that. So that would be my thing. It's just the concern of how do we house something that would be so popular with parking? Okay, thank you.
My name is Nancy Meadow. I'm on Beach Avenue. This all reinforces everything I always think about Bradley Beach. There are two Bradley Beaches, the south side and the north side. I agree with you. Everything gets dumped to the north side when we can't even get a mailbox. For the people that need medical marijuana, I hope you can have it, and I hope it helps you. But just as I have to travel to get my medicinal needs met, I don't see why you can't travel to get your medicinal needs met. It would be easier if when I had suggested we work with New Jersey Transit to get better train service, better bus service, our leaders had done that, but that didn't come to fruition. Just like alcohol impairs at times, as does marijuana, but the testing and the proving of that is different when one is on the road. I do not think we have the infrastructure to support this in any way, shape, or form. And I don't think we want people coming here to burden us. I would urge for once the council do thorough research and really look at the impact this would have. I have been a drug counselor. I'm a teacher. I do not think that this is in the best use of what you call a family resort. In addition, how are you gonna figure it out when people are on the beach, when you can't even regulate a tent? I think this would be a huge mistake for our community, again, with others being able to get their needs met by going to other facilities. Thank you.
Next speaker.
Hi, Jim Burns, 401 Fifth.
Just, we're talking legal residents here, so if you could just clear that up, please.
What's that mean?
Your legal residents, we're,
401, and my summer residence is Bayville.
okay, thank you very much.
So if you have a problem with that, just let me know.
I just trying to clear that up.
Okay. As the one gentleman said, so what'd you clear up? I don't understand.
You're a council member in Berkeley. correct?
Yes.
Okay, so I don't know, your legal residence can't be in both.
Do you have any other residences?
No.
You?
No.
I have one in Carolina, so what am I, a Carolina resident? Your residence is wherever you wanna call it.
Okay.
I pay taxes here for the last 20 years.
Thank you.
How long have you lived in Bradley?
22 years.
22?
Yes, sir.
Oh, good. All right. Well, the one gentleman, you know, if you don't act on it within 180 days of the adoption, then you're stuck with it for 5 years. I'm a real in favor of medical marijuana. I know the veterans are, you know, they're going to be having it for medical marijuana for PTSD and other things. So I've seen the CBD oil helps, and a lot of this marijuana helps. The only problem I have with the recreational marijuana is, you know, you'll have, let's say, an ounce or whatever that comes in a, you know, from a dispensary. And there's so much black market marijuana now that's laced with different chemicals. So it's not like, you know, when I was in Vietnam, like Bill, you know, the old homegrown, which Vietnam, I guess, was my address back then also. But, you know, I do agree, but it's not like Bradley Beach will be the only medical dispensary around. When this starts, it's gonna be all over the place. It'll be Asbury, it'll be Neptune, it'll be everywhere. But, you know, I just think it's, you know, you really need to look into the recreational marijuana. The medical is, I'm 100% for it. And like I said, the prescriptions are not hard to get. And I've been to Seattle and California, and for $50 you get a script and you get all you want. But, and for the police, you know, when they pull you over, when this is legal and they see you have a bag of weed, you know, they don't know what the bag of weed is. You know, if it's laced or whatever, if it's homegrown or Acapulco or whatever. And, you know, so that's where I stand. I would like to see it in town and anywhere else, but for medicinal only. And in town right now, you sell Kratom, which is, to me, and the doctor knows it's worse than medical marijuana or any marijuana. And you can get that in any 7-Eleven. Okay?
Yes, sir.
And Mayor, if you have time, I'd like to meet with you on your problems with where I live. Thank you.
Call the office anytime, we'll set that up. Next person.
Well, I can't follow me.
Am I here every day, Chief?
Why has he gotta be a jerk? Hi, my name is Al Gubitosi, 615 4th Avenue, Bradley Beach. I actually didn't come here tonight expecting to say much of anything. I really was here to listen and form my own opinions, but I will confess that I do have a bias that I'd like to just share and make it part of the public record. Number one, I'm very supportive of medicinal marijuana, and the stories we heard earlier in the evening, you know, actually made me feel good to know that this is helping some people. And to the extent it alleviates some of the opioid epidemic, all the better. When it came to the meeting tonight, though, I really wasn't thinking that this was a discussion that should focus on the value of medicinal marijuana, recreational marijuana, but rather a little bit along the lines of what Dr. Kotler suggested. You know, what do we as residents of Bradley Beach want to, you know, want to be a part of our community? So one, infrastructure I think is a significant challenge. I would rely on our experts to tell us if we could actually accommodate a facility like that, and specifically I'm talking about medical marijuana dispensary. But I was struck, Mayor, by the very first letter you read in favor of, but they said, there was a closing line that says something along the lines of, and maintain the home you know, the family environment.
Family-friendly atmosphere.
Right. And that just struck me, and again, this is my bias that I told you I'd confess. My bias towards a family-friendly atmosphere tells me I'd rather not have the facility in Bradley Beach. And the gentleman who just spoke said, you know, this is gonna spread. It may be in Asbury, maybe in Neptune, maybe others. And I would say, you know, that's fine. I think the one thing I did look at was state of Colorado. It seemed to me about 50% of the municipalities don't authorize it and 50% do. So I think it's okay to be on either side of that ledger. My personal vote would be to be on the side that did not authorize in our community. And one thought I had just to show Mayor and Council was, I know that the borough has a list of prohibited businesses. Recently, I know that doesn't mean the business can't exist in the borough. It just means they have to go to the zoning board and get approved for a use variance. And I know recently, and this is, I know apples and oranges in many ways, but one of the businesses we don't allow, prohibited, are tattoo parlors. And recently, within the past year, I know a tattoo parlor went to the zoning board and was approved as a business in the borough. So my personal opinion would be, I'd like to see the borough focus on a zoning-based approach that might start out prohibiting the business, and then, you know, on a case-specific basis, we might approve, say, a particular applicant. The other concern, finally, would just be, if we don't prohibit the business, what's to say it would only be one? What's to say there wouldn't be 2, 3, or 5? So, thank you for the opportunity to talk.
Joseph Licata, 121A Lake Terrace, Bradley Beach. You know, and all I've been listening to here is drugs, 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 and drugs. You know what I mean? Gentleman said, he says that Asbury Park is going to distribute drugs, you know, and the state is going to distribute drugs. I don't think that Bradley Beach should distribute drugs. You know, it's a drug. I don't care what anybody says. A drug is a drug, a drug. Heard the gentleman say he went from pills to heroin to whatever, now he's on marijuana. Next year it's going to be something else that's going to take him off the marijuana, and the government is going to give it to him. You know, I don't think Bradley Beach should do that.
Next speaker.
Christine Robinson, 706 Lorraine. I'm all for, even though I'm a renter, I know my rent is based on real estate taxes. So if we are looking at this, if it's a benefit for taxes, I'm all for getting any tax benefit to anybody here. If we look at it like that, are we looking at the total tax benefit? Is there additional costs for public service that goes along with having a dispensary or a service? So I just ask that if we look for it, this is neither pro nor con, that when you look at it and you look at the total tax benefit that there may be to this town, is there other ancillary costs that may offset that and then wouldn't be? Because I'm all for helping with the taxes. So I just ask that you look at all of that. Thank you.
Thomas Coan, 612 3rd Avenue. Mayor, I do agree with Dr. Kotler in terms of a clear way to look at this, and I do agree with Mr. Gubitosi's comments as is from a zoning perspective. Someone would have to come in and say, this site is specifically suited for this, and they would have to make those proofs. Because we could end up with 5 or 6. And with some of the comments today, I don't agree that this is an anti-business sentiment towards Bradley Beach if we don't pass this. Being a business owner of a building on Main Street, I'm very protective of Main Street. To use the words of the union representative who spoke here, he said, look at this in a metropolitan way. Well, that's exactly what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna say, okay, this is the Jersey Shore metropolis, and I can go to Asbury Park to get it. I can go to Neptune to get it. So the metropolis allows me to get it. It doesn't mean we have to offer it right here. And being the family beach resort, I don't believe that that sends the message that we really want. Councilman Burns made a very good point about the problems with it. And actually Berkeley Township did pass an ordinance against it. So I think he's on the cutting edge with his community with it. So I think that right now, as of December 14th, 47 towns have banned it. Now, the sale, manufacturing, farming, or other uses. Now, some of the towns locally that if we're worried about assessments, as the gentleman that had your letter mentioned, let's just look at the values in some of the local towns that have already said no. Avon, median home price, $895. Spring Lake, median home price, $1,821,000. Cedar, median home price, $1,775,000. Now, Cedar and Spring Lake have the lowest tax rates in the entire county. So they must be doing something right. So if we're gonna look at assessment, let's look at that. Our median home price is $571,000. So, you know, we got a ways to go, but let's send the message that we wanna be in that category here. You know, Asbury Park will definitely support it. They've already said they're going to support it. The Bradley Beach downtown is advancing very steadily. The state of New Jersey has 565 municipalities. Not every municipality has a pharmacy. And there's no requirement that every municipality has a pharmacy. Sometimes you have to go to another one. And I believe that's the way it should be here, and I believe that's the message that I hope the mayor and council will send. Thank you very much.
Let it be noted that TJ Cohen got applause.
Is that the first one?
Jeff Curtis, 202 3rd Avenue. I'm going to be on the opposite. I'm in favor of it. We're talking about our children. I work in the Hudson County Correction Center with young men who are dealing with their own addictions. And we are finding new ways to help them, as you've heard tonight. And it's very important that we're talking about our kids, because that's who's affected by this. We can say real estate issues are the reason we're not going to do this. We can make up all kinds of excuses for not being able to do this. And I hope if all of you will do that, you'll also eliminate the bars and tobacco in this town. They have far more consequences than the drugs do. So we need to get honest in this community and understand that this is an important breakthrough in the treatment for our young kids who are in this epidemic. And if we're not willing to stand with them, then we need to say that, and we're no longer a family resort.
Next speaker. Just pretend it's next door neighbor, and everybody just jump in.
Mike Derrick, 631 Ocean Avenue. I think we should ban it, and that's it. That's all I gotta say.
Okay.
I think it's destructive of the community, and they certainly have options right nearby. If they wanna get medical marijuana. The recreational is an entirely different conversation.
Well, let this gentleman go.
Arthur Havlich, 508 Newark Avenue, that little sliver that everyone's talking about. I have no problems with the medical marijuana. And it can be gotten in other towns, nearby towns. You have to go another mile only, half a mile to get it. Why burden Bradley Beach with it? And someone else had brought up the fact about parking. It may seem like a trivial thing considering what everything is, but In the summertime, for those 100 days of summer, impossible, totally impossible to park. And especially in my end of town, where all the housing lots are all small. My lot is 41 feet wide. So, how many on my block are the same size? Every one of those lots have at least 1 or 2 cars. That brings up the amount of cars for the town in that area, fantastic. I try not to leave if I don't have to in the summertime, but there are times I do have to leave. For whatever reason, go somewhere. But I'm not objecting to the medical part. I'm objecting to the recreational. I personally do not want to be subjected to exposure of the of marijuana coming in my direction. Since I have a small lot, my next door neighbor smokes marijuana. I'm smelling that smoke. I may be I don't know what the effect it might have on me, but I don't want to have that problem. I don't want to even think about. I have to worry about going in my house when someone else is smoking pot. I have a son that's developmentally disabled, takes many medications. I don't want him subjected to this. He's 52 years old. Now, what would be the problem if some of his medications would be adversely affected by smelling the marijuana, of inhaling that? I know it has effects, but I don't know what they are. I have never in my entire life smoked marijuana. And I don't want my son to be subjected to this. I do have a neighbor that smokes marijuana now, and he's out in his yard smoking it. I don't want to smell it. I don't want to be subjected to it, but I don't have a choice. And I don't want it, if it becomes legal, what choice do I have? I just have to put up with it or move, and I have to leave my town that I've been here for many years because my neighbor wants to be able to smoke it. I don't think it's necessary. And the facilities to get the medical marijuana, as I said, it's only half a mile away, less than a half a mile. It's not creating a hardship for anyone. And I don't know about.
It's an hour and a half, sir. It's an hour and a half for me.
Well, for you, but not if the people in this area, they go right down there. Was it
There's only
5 minutes to go into
There's only
Asbury?
6 in the state.
No cross roads.
There's only 6 in the state.
That has nothing to do where you live. But if people live here can go to Asbury Park.
So let's direct your, sir, just.
I'm sorry, I
Yes.
apologize. I just wasn't expecting that. So that's basically my outlook on it. I'm assuming that many people in town feel the same way. No one wants to be outside smelling this if you don't have to, inhaling it. What would it do? I don't know.
So on the legalization side, I encourage you to reach out to your assemblyman and your senator, because that's not something we're gonna have a say in.
But as I was just saying, Avon said they're not going to have it in town.
Right, but if the state legalizes it, that doesn't preclude someone from using it in their own house, their own backyard. What Avon and secret other towns have done is that we don't want.
That's my problem. If it's in the backyard, then I'm subjected to it.
Right.
And I don't want to be smoking marijuana or inhaling it, because I've never done it and I don't have any desire to. Well, I'm sorry, I'm sure there might be more people that think as I do. I'm hoping more people come forward and voice their opinion. Thank you.
Gary, so I could, we're getting into, some people seem to be saying things that aren't necessarily true or understood. So I did a little research and, showed that 33 states have medical marijuana out there right now. We've had it in New Jersey since 2012, medical. The places are called alternative treatment centers. They're in Montclair, they're in Cranberry, they're in Woodbridge, they're in Egg Harbor, Secaucus, and Belmar, the one with the W that's down by Philadelphia. So the closest one would be Cranberry, and that's 30 miles, 40 minutes away. The state puts out a report in 2017 is the most recent one they have numbers for. There's 26,000 registered patients. As the gentleman said here, it's up to like 39,000 now. Again, 2017 numbers, there's 663 physicians that are said, I would like to be able to prescribe this. The patient and the physician, they each pay $200 to be in the medical marijuana program. They lower it if you're low income. patients can only register with one alternative treatment center. So if you live in Montclair and you go to that one, you can't just say, I'm on vacation and go to a different one. For anyone involved in these businesses, if they're the owners, or the financial backers, or the workers, whatever, they're extensively background checked, their tax records, their bank accounts, their, any criminal history, they're fingerprinted. On the medical side, again, it seems pretty safe. These are vertically oriented businesses for the most part, where everything that they're selling on site, they are growing on site, and that's what the first speaker alluded to, like you need more space to do this. That said, the Murphy administration, they are looking at all these, they're looking to actually change a lot of regulations around New Jersey's program, so all this is kind of subject to change. But one other thing I got out of the New Jersey Monthly article is that each package sold is labeled with a barcode assigned to the plant when the plant was a seedling. There's 24-hour video surveillance at all these places. The average user of a medical facility is an older person with mobility issues, so that could mean that there's attractive things about Bradley Beach. We have a train station. So we don't know what a medical facility, and again, I appreciate that most people are separating out the recreational with the medical, and we just don't know what a medical facility would offer us. If they come and offer us and say, we're gonna make a facility here, and we're gonna have 10 free parking, we're only gonna be open 9 to 5, and then on nights and weekends, you can have these 10 free parking spaces. Well, I would wanna hear that before we go banning medical facilities in town. And then our attorney's assessment, that's only her assessment of the legislation right now for recreational. That all could change, so I think we should hold tight and see what the state does, quite frankly, on that. And just to remind everybody, we can ban consumption in public for the last speaker if we want to do that. And then, if you're like me, you have a house in Bradley Beach where you have chain smokers, cigarette smokers, on either side of you. And I have 2 little kids, so what do? I close the windows. I don't like having to close my windows all the time, but I do. And that's what I do. So that's what someone's gonna have to do in that situation. So, but I encourage people to go and take a peek at this. It's online for the state's medical program. Thank you. Yes.
My name is Shashir, 112 Fourth Avenue, Bradley Beach. My question is, if we're focusing on the medicinal purpose of marijuana, wouldn't it make logical sense for that center to be closer to the hospital, Jersey Shore, where they have a major cancer center and they have many sickly people, that they could just go right there and get it and not be in a small town? That's my personal opinion. And I'm personally against having a store in town. Thank you.
Hi, Rich Stessman, 600 3rd Avenue. No notes. I have 5 pages of notes over there. I didn't take up because I didn't want it to go too long. First, I'll address those people that come from other towns here. Somebody acknowledged they don't know much about Bradley Beach. You keep hearing about how small of a town it is. I don't know if you understand what that means. I came from Jackson, it was 100 square miles. I went to the next town, it was only 50 square miles. That was considered a much smaller town. Our town is 5/8 of a square mile. Do you have any idea what that is like? It's small. My focus with being an advocate about the council to speak on this was strictly about the nuts and bolts of businesses that come into our town of any kind. Now, we all look on Google and we do our research. Somebody behind me, every time somebody said something that wasn't to their liking, spoke up. And I don't think that that's fair, because we all know that to have marijuana for recreational or medicinal purposes, you can go on and argue forever and you're not going to get together. I know if you want to go find a case, you can go online and find all the details and all the statistics that you want to support your side of the story. NewJersey.com does this. I don't know if you know who they are. It's a very large organization. They're owned by Advanced Publishers. It's a 12,000 person worldwide organization. And their main business is basically collecting data and marketing. And they are also owners of, I forget the publication, but it's the Evident publication supporting marijuana. It's a weekly publication, a lot of good information in there if you'd like. But I put those two things together because of the way that Advanced Publications companies put their data together and how they spoon feed it to us, just like Google has and Facebook has, and how other social media platforms do as well. In the end, what happens is people become very opinionated. And they become very much like what we see going on in our country right now. And you've got two sides of the aisle, hard facts, hard in place with no budge. People don't want to see certain kind of news. They ban it in some fashion, they block it, or they don't read it. It's like somebody that I know, they only watch Fox News because all other news is fake news. And I said, how can anybody do that? I'm sure there's somebody that's going to be looking at MSNBC and say that only their news is good news. So there's two sides of every story, and nothing is going to come of it if we keep debating we should have marijuana or not. I don't think there's anybody in this room that disagrees with medicinal marijuana. I haven't heard anybody speaking against that. I go back to my original. Other people had a lot more time than me, believe me. What the council should focus on, again, as I say, the nuts and bolts, think about it, of these kinds of businesses. Sometimes these businesses, these types of business that we're speaking of right now, can be something pretty nasty, and I think I've shown some people proof of that, where in some cases even medicinal marijuana is being, that part of the business is being gamed. I have a couple of websites I can give you, and within 5 minutes you can get your credentials to go out and buy whatever you want legally. Not here in New Jersey, we don't have that yet, but that could come. I'll get out of here.
Bill?
Yes, like I said, I've seen both spectrums of the field. But I have a question. I don't think you'll be able to answer anything. It might be more of a legal issue than anything. If we go the route of a medicinal place for dispensary, would that be opening up a door for another rehab center?
I don't think they're related.
I don't know. I'm just saying. Yeah. Well, put it this way. I'm a drug user and I need a dispensary to use medicinal marijuana to lean me, get me off opioids or whatever. You know, would that open up the door for another one? I'm just asking. You know, like I said, it might be more of a legal issue than anything.
I don't see a correlation.
I don't know. Would we be able to ask our attorney?
We're quite familiar with all our planning board changes over the years in terms of what we've done with boarding houses and halfway houses, so I think we've tightened it up as best we can, so I don't see a correlation at all.
Well, I hope not. I'm just, like I said, just throwing it out there. Just throwing it out. It's a discussion.
Sure.
That's all it is.
Does anyone else plan to speak tonight? Okay.
Hi, I'm Stephanie Capella. I live at 506 Madison Ave. Some people have debated how long they've been here in town. Well, I've been here 40 plus years and my family's been here 70 plus years. So I've watched the town change over the years, maybe not as fast as it should have along the way with the times, but I think this is really a time for Bradley Beach to kind of step up and be something that other towns can look towards and embrace not just medical marijuana, because again, somebody mentioned, I don't think anybody is disputing that people should have access to medical marijuana, but recreational marijuana. You are fooling yourselves. I walk more in this town on a daily basis than probably everybody in this room combined, and I will tell you, there's not one block that I go down that I don't smell weed already, all right? So the fact that we could be getting tax dollars, we could be regulating it, we could be making sure that it is indeed what the person thinks they're purchasing, we could be making this town safer. You brought up the other types, the other forms that weed can be purchased in dispensaries, and the gummies, and we're all worried about the children, they're all gonna pop the gummies. Well, that needs to be under parental control, and if you're so worried about what your children are doing, you should be more present, plain and simple. That is not for the council members to have to regulate. That is for the people in the schools, to educate the children, parents at home, to actually be there and make sure that doesn't happen. We talked about whether there's going to be multiple dispensaries popping all over Bradley Beach. Well, physically there can't, because we are such a tiny town. We do have an elementary school smack dab in the center of this town. We do have the rec center at the other end, which means it can't be over that way. So there's really gonna be maybe one location that ideally we can even place a dispensary. Whether it's for, again, recreational, medical, both, what have you. So I don't really think that that is a very big worry. Everything that comes out of these dispensaries, it's not in a little baggie that you're gonna stuff in your pocket. It is, it's coded from the beginning, from the time that this plant is grown, it goes through, it is documented its whole little life until it winds up on a dispensary shelf. And then it's dispensed the same way you get other medications from a pharmacy. It's labeled appropriately. People have to have cards to have it. And you could even make that if it's just a recreational thing. Again, you guys have the power to put as much structure on it as you want. And as far as the smelling marijuana, it's not dangerous. Smelling cigarettes is far more dangerous. There are over 1,000 known toxins in a single cigarette, and marijuana is a plant. And I do have a bio degree and a chemistry degree to back that information up. All right? So that's my opinion. I am 100% in favor.
Mr. Mayor, if I can add, since gummy bears have been brought up a couple of times, I think I read that the medical facilities, they don't, there's no edibles, right? Okay, that hasn't changed, okay,
Lozenges, that's it.
okay, so, no gummy bear.
Well, there is Tylenol, or I'm not sure Tylenol. Strike that from the record, the brand name. They're coming out with orange gummies.
Okay.
They do exist in pharmacies.
Oh, okay.
So gummies, they're marketed.
Would anyone else like to speak? Yes, sir.
Evening, everybody. Evening, council. Sam Neshawat, born and raised 305 Lorraine Avenue, Bradley Beach here. And I'm not going to hold up your time too long, or at least I hope. I can go on some rant, but we're going to make it quick and concise. So to wrap myself out here, I am a non-card holding medical and recreational cannabis user. I have been for approximately about 10 years now. I am also currently, as of a few months ago, just past 10 years as a federal employee as well. I started up at Fort Monmouth here, got relocated down to Maryland. Just wanted to give you guys just some little bearing there because for the better part of the last 5 years or so, I spent a majority of my time commuting between Maryland and New Jersey, spending a majority of my residence up here and temporarily staying down there. I only mention that because every 2 to 3 days I would travel 150 plus miles. I would go in and out of a military base, at which point I very much typically, for the majority of these times, had product with me for that sense because I am personally not leaving with my family. So that being said, there has been a number of instances, strictly in the Monmouth County, strictly in the 10 square mile of Bradley Beach, where that's been somewhat of I guess a concern, not for sake of behavior or reckless behavior, but for simple possession. I come up because I just wanted to make note, there was discussion about, whether or not we want to have, you know, a facility in Bradley Beach. I don't think that's necessarily truly the immediate issue per se. I don't think, you know, as a community, we would like to show that you know, we are forward with these, you know, with this new understanding, that we want to, you know, be open to the public. But the way somebody mentioned before, as far as how we have it zoned for say, you know, tattoo parlors and the sort, it's considered, you know, an exception of sort. It's an accepted, you know, or an exception business that requires you coming to the council and presenting your proposal in a sense, that it would meet certain, you know, guidelines within the township. So, you know, that being the case, just because we established that you know, opening a medical or recreational facility, and that facility is not really too determined. I don't know if we established here anything with regards to something along the lines of, you know, a facility for consumption, a lounge of sorts, or if it's strictly for retail that we're discussing right now. But either way, having that discussion and allowing for the potential for that business, or even just leaving it as, you know, a prohibited business the way that tattoo is, that it has to be presented to the council, would introduce, you know, something along the lines of, if it's a zoning matter, if it's an issue with parking, you know, if that facility wants to compromise, say it's a night and weekends type of deal or something, or another bar decides to close up somewhere along the lines, we should be having an understanding that this is a business no different than any other, say, like a tobacco shop, or like you know, a bar or liquor store. If a liquor store here or a bar here wanted to close, what is necessarily the issue with introducing the potential for having, say, just a retail shop or a lounge there? I personally am pursuing a lounge in you know, other areas around. I would love the opportunity to look into something in Bradley Beach, but I don't see that. I haven't seen that for some time, and I'm sorry, I haven't seen that up until this point. So I do appreciate you know, giving us the opportunity to speak, having an open dialogue, and you know, just again, somebody mentioned you know, as far as it being a drug. You know, and it is, but it's a drug, not necessarily so much different than alcohol, cigarettes, sugar, caffeine. These are all things that alter in some sense, but we don't have the science to discuss how it affects motor functions, which is where I kind of went to initially, as far as, you know, impairment behind the wheel and stuff of that nature. People talked about it being a gateway of sorts. I've not touched. I have a drink of sorts once, maybe twice a month, if at best. I'm not somebody that is very particular about being in an impaired state as far as motor function, as far as the ability to perform in a you know, fashion. So just to wrap it up, I mean, that's something that, you know, I've not touched any other products. I've not consumed any other products. It's not a gateway in this. It can be. Anything can be a gateway. You start opening up that Ghirardelli chocolate and you're gonna have a fun all night. But anything can be a gateway of sorts. But to demonize people for behaviors that do not impact others around you, besides the potential for a skunky backyard in some sense, that's a discussion between neighbors. You know, but again, somebody else also mentioned that it's far and away from a safety standpoint, as far as secondhand, as far as poison to your lungs and to your neighbors. That's something that you know, you need to do a little more research on, because it's in no sense, you know, the way it's demonized. And as far as gummies and the likes go, that's a fear-mongering tactic. I'm pretty sure the FDA last year approved what is it, Adderall in gummy form for children. It was either Adderall or yeah, it was Adderall. So I mean, as far as hard narcotics go, that's up to the parents' responsibility. When it comes to prohibition, education is the absolute best route, whether that comes from the parents or the school systems. I was the top of my class in Bradley Beach. I was the chair for our DARE program, and I'm here to tell you that the education system that we got is abysmal. To scare kids away will only introduce them to things far beyond their grasp and far beyond their capability. And we've already established what doctors are capable of doing to the youth and to the parents. When they tell you it's good to go, we'll take it like the holy you know, books. But we've seen where that's gotten us today, and we really need to reevaluate our strategies towards these things and how we target and impact people. Because Monmouth County is obscenely questionable when it comes to apprehension and charges for people, and I only see it coming down the pipeline. Even if we decriminalize, we are going to start pursuing for what's considered to be impaired driving and impaired individuals. And I'm not opposed to taking impaired people off the road, but if we do it in a manner that's irresponsible and uneducated, which is what we're doing right now, it's only going to ask for more trouble down the line. So I appreciate it. I thank you for the time.
Any other speakers? So this event was, I asked to put this together. I am probably the least knowledgeable person when it comes to, Randy is tired of hearing me tell the story that, my dad was an FBI agent for 36 years, so I have never smoked anything. So trust me, in college I made up for it with other choices. But that being said, I grew up in a law and order family, and I had a brother who was a straight A student at one of the most premier high schools in Washington D.C. who went to college and fried his brains out on pot. So I kind of looked at him and said, gee, I don't want to turn out like that. But so I'm telling you too much of my life history here. But I have a son who's a drug and alcohol counselor, and who says, Dad, this is the greatest thing that's ever happened with regards to the opioid crisis. I have another family member who suffers from anxiety and utilizes it, and quite successfully. So I 100% totally support the utilization of marijuana for medical purposes. That being said, and I'll use the example of the tattoo parlor that came to Main Street next to Darcy's a couple of years ago. 100% against it. And a couple of years later it happened, it looked good from the outside, and it was fine. We may find ourselves 10 years from now saying, okay, it's okay to do this now because it's been proven in other towns. I'm not ready to do that now. The claim that Tim made with regards to would not hurt us as a family resort, I wholeheartedly disagree. And we are not desperate for tax revenue on our Main Street to approve this kind of this usage. So it's my intent to introduce an ordinance very shortly, which mirrors some others that has, and this is really, and again, Dr. Cotton made a great point. We are a very small town, and it's going to boil down to logistically, is it even possible to do this? And it may not even be possible to do it because of the zoning and the 1,000 feet and things like that. But I believe it should be a prohibited use in Bradley Beach. The manufacture, growth, or cultivation related to marijuana is prohibited in all zones. And the sale of marijuana or the paraphernalia that facilitates the use of marijuana for any purpose whether medicinal or recreational, is prohibited in all zones. So that is something that I will introduce, and we'll see whether or not there is sufficient support for it. I deeply appreciate those who've come out tonight. I'm not going to close this meeting. Others may want to weigh in, but yeah, and we may want to do this more often because I'm a fervent believer in inclusivity as much as we can pull it off and still be civil at the same time. So that's just kind of where I'm coming from. There's a personal side. The other thing that's driving this from the state perspective is just revenue. The Colorado experience brought in a ton of money, and New Jersey is in need of money. So that's what's driving it, as far as I'm concerned. That and it is a job creator, but it's not a revenue creator in Bradley Beach. It's not a job creator in Bradley Beach, and it's not something that I'd like to see on our Main Street. So that's my 2 cents. I'll make a motion to close the meeting.
Second.
All in favor?